The following program is to provide entertainment and information. It is not considered to be any legal or investment advice. Good morning, appraisers. Let's talk some real estate. You're listening to the Voice of Appraisal, the #1 appraisal podcast in America that brings you the latest news and information from the front lines of the real estate market. Anything from market conditions, appraisal regulations, cryptocurrencies, big bank news. Folks, you have a question, we have all of your answers. We are the one-stop source for all of your real estate appraisal information needs. If you want to be in the know, you have definitely tuned in to the right show. I'm your host, Phil Crawford. Happy to have all of you here with us today. Kevin, damn, Kevin, that got real. That got real. For those of you that have been wondering where I've been busy. It's as simple and easy as that. I've been busy, out of control. I hope all of you out there, your bizometer should be going through the roof. As a matter of fact, I've been so busy, I didn't even change the bizometer. Because I know, that's me. That's what happens. The refinance frenzy that took place in September was unbelievable in certain parts of the country. The 10-year Treasury going down to 1.5, dipping right at 1.45, something along those lines. It triggered a massive refinance frenzy on the commercial side, on the residential side. It also triggered some problems for Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. Oh, yeah, there's some issues going on over there as well. I'll get to that in just a minute, especially when it comes to the waivers, okay? But it has just been absolutely out of control. I hope all of you had a very busy month. The new Crawford report is out with all of the new macro information that took place last month. It's been a little bit crazy. I know. I hope all of you had a good month, saved up some good money, have got a nice big fat account receivables ready for the fourth quarter of 2019 because, folks, it's just going to get out of control. Let's go ahead and break down the news, Kevin. We got to break down the news.
Actually, before we break down the news, I do have one quick question for you.
Yes.
Long time ago when interest rates were going down, we always came up with the analogy that it was like a bowling ball. It's going down.
Yes.
It's going to be hard to get back up. Do you see the 10-year doing that?
No, I don't think 10 years going anywhere. As a matter of fact, I think 10 years going down even more. And I'll tell you, it could be at 1%, maybe by December, maybe by January of next year, somewhere in there, and you're going to be just as busy because there's been some problems on the bifurcated side. Let's go ahead and get into the news and information, folks. So we got some big news that we got to put out there, and this is coming. Listen, I'm going to go with this information. If it's wrong, I'm going to have to blame Joan Trice, okay, because she put it out there. She put it out there last week on a Facebook post. And she said on her Facebook post, now remember, Joan's not going to put this out there unless she's verified it. So I'm assuming that she has properly vetted the information and has verified all this. She has put out there that the GSEs, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, are to stop all of their pilot programs, including the bifurcated and the waiver program that Fannie Mae is doing. This comes from a Treasury Department directive to FHFA. That's Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin to the FHFA. Remember, the FHFA is the entity that regulates Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. And in this directive, it specifically says that they are to stop all pilot programs. Now, it doesn't say stop the bifurcated and stop the waivers and all that stuff. It doesn't say that specifically. It just says stop pilot programs. But from what I'm hearing, from Juicy Joan Trice and from other people, this does include the bifurcated program and the pissing in the wind property inspection waivers, a.k.a. appraisal waivers, that Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac have been putting out. This is amazing, big news. What I'm hearing, do you remember last week there was a huge sausage party. Well, they're not really that big because the numbers are down, but there was a big sausage party in Las Vegas that Juicy Joan Trice put on. I guess when she started out the CRN, the Cash Rewards and Negotiation Party, everybody walked in and they were hot and heavy. They were ready for chronic bifurcation. Everybody in that room was hot and heavy, hot and bothered, steamed up, ready to go for chronic bifurcation. And I guess she dropped this bomb on them first thing in that room in Cash Rewards and Negotiations. And I guess she shriveled up all of the sausages, Kevin. I mean, it must have been a bad thing. That's what I'm hearing through the grapevine. So everything has now changed very rapidly in 1 week in the appraisal profession. I mean, it's absolutely unbelievable, and especially when it comes to these waivers. These waivers that are out there. There used to be a gentleman that worked at Fannie Mae. His name was Bob Murphy. Nice guy. I've talked to him before. Very nice guy. His name is Bob Murphy. He doesn't work there anymore. He retired, but he left his law there. He left Murphy's Law in Fannie Mae because I don't think Fannie Mae I don't think they were getting ready for this whole situation with negative interest rates throughout the world, okay? What we're seeing now is people that got appraisal waivers when they purchased their homes 8 months ago, and now they want to refinance now. Most of the time, you don't refinance in that period of time. It takes you a couple of years for the rates to go down. Because the rates are sinking so damn fast, people are wanting to refinance 8 months after they purchase a property. But remember, when they purchased it, they got an appraisal waiver done. Well, guess what? I guess some of these banks are not allowing a double waiver, Kevin. They are saying that when you go to refinance, you have to have an appraisal done.
Exactly.
So guess what? The homeowners are now realizing when the appraisal is done that they paid $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 too much back when they got the waiver because the appraisal was never done. They overpaid for the property, or even if they didn't overpay, maybe they paid a premium, but they didn't have the knowledge. Now when they have the second appraisal done, they realize, wait a second, the second appraisal comes in lower than what I just purchased it for 8 months ago. Do you see what's going on? Major, major damage in the secondary market because you're trying to screw up things when it comes to these PIWs. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. The pilot programs are done, Kevin. It's all done. It's all done.
We even warned everybody these PIWs aren't going to be around that long.
Well, they can't be.
They're done.
From what everybody's told me, and I've got reliable sources besides Juicy Joan, I'm telling you, they're shutting it down. From what I've heard, all of the quote-unquote pilot programs are going to be shut down through the election. Remember, Fannie and Freddie, through FHFA, they're trying to get these two companies to go public. So if they go public, then they can maybe bring back the pilot programs. But to be honest with you, I don't see any way that Fannie and Freddie with $1 trillion or whatever it is, $5 trillion worth of collateralized debt, I don't know how they can go public without having a government backstop. They're going to have some government backstop. And if there is that government backstop, the bottom line is the taxpayer's on the hook. You're not waiving appraisals. You're going back to the good old-fashioned days, three-legged stool. You're getting the three horsemen of the mortgage. You're getting your collateral analysis done. You're getting your employment analysis done. And you're getting your credit analysis done. I mean, that's what it's all about. So we're going back to the three-legged stool. We're going back to the three horsemen of the mortgage process where you have the collateral, a.k.a. the appraisal done, when you have the income verification, and when you have the credit verification. That's what needs to happen. And I'm telling you, it's just absolutely unbelievable. So I think what's going to happen, and remember, we've seen a lot out of Fannie Mae in the last, I'd say, 3 or 4 years. We've been covering on this show since they all came out with Chuck Up Chuck. But here's the deal. I think what you're going to find over the course of the next year is a massive quieting of Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. I really do. And I think that you're going to start to see some wiser heads prevail and say, look, you know what? We don't need to jump in this. You know, the bifurcated thing is one thing. And again, this is the other thing, too. This is the sad part about it. The bifurcated product is not a bad product if it's used for the proper scope of work. But it cannot be the end-all, be-all of every single product out there. But the waiver side is dangerous. Dangerous, dangerous, dangerous. And it looks like, from what we've been told, from my inside sources and from Juicy Joan Trice, that this whole pilot program is shut down for the moment. But remember, when it comes to the appraisal waiver side, it really is bipartisan. Steve Mnuchin is on the Republican side, okay? He is now issuing a directive to FHFA. Maxine Waters, who's on the Democrat side, got really mad and upset that there's appraisal waivers in North Dakota, and she wants to know what the hell's going on. So between both of the Republican and Democrat sides, everybody's looking at these appraisal waivers going, what are you people thinking? Knock it off, and let's get back to doing appraisals. So it has been a very positive week for real estate appraisers out there all over the country. And I want to give a special thanks to those people who are not thanked. Those people who have been fighting this fight nonstop for the last 5 years. And you know who you are. You know who you are as far as getting the word out to lawmakers, to movers and shakers and policymakers. And if we had a group of people that were strong enough to continue that messaging forward, which we're going to do, I don't think we'll have to deal with this situation in the future going forward. This is what it's all about. This is what it's all about. And it was an amazing week. We need to continue moving forward with our messaging. Our messaging is so important right now in this profession. Did you just hear what happened with the Appraisal Foundation? The Appraisal Foundation put out a webinar, and this was in September, about bringing on a set of standards for evaluations. It was absolutely crazy. If the Appraisal Foundation goes down this path of evaluations where they're going to create standards for evaluations, then what they've done is, essentially, say, hey, we are now backing up this product. I thought in the past we were allowed to do evaluations under restricted report standards, but I guess now they're talking about bringing on a new set of standards. Remember, it just doesn't make any sense. The big issue that the Appraisal Foundation needs to focus in on, and I'm serious about this, you need to focus in on the uniform standards being applied uniformly through the 55 jurisdictions in this country. It's exactly what Pat Turner said the last time he was on the show. 55 jurisdictions going in 55 different directions. This has got to be your primary focus, because if you cannot focus on this and you cannot solve this issue, then there's problems. And I know that the Appraisal Foundation has always taken the stance that they do not regulate. The states regulate, they don't regulate. Well, what came out of this last webinar is very, very telling. It's at the 51-minute mark, Kevin. Let's go ahead and listen in to what the Appraisal Foundation has to say when it comes to 55 different jurisdictions going in 55 different directions when it comes to the application and interpretation of the uniform standards. Go for it.
The question is, what steps, if any, is the Appraisal Foundation taking to bring states into better alignment with their regulatory statutes as they relate to the appraisal profession? It would seem that much of the confusion in the industry stems from various laws found from state to state. So, as we all know, that states are responsible for enforcing USPAP for their state licensed and certified appraisers.
Yeah. States are responsible.
There are 55 different jurisdictions out there, and they don't all see things the same way. We strongly encourage as much consistency as possible. I think the profession can sometimes suffer if one state issues a warning letter to somebody that has the exact same violations in another state, and that results in a suspension or revocation.
Stop tape.
I think we lose a little credibility as a profession for that.
I think we lose a little bit. You think you lose a little bit of credibility?
I think more than that.
You lose all credibility. You're done. You can't. Justice must be applied equally. That's why justice is that pretty woman she's holding the scales of justice, and the scales of justice must be applied equally. So if one jurisdiction says, hey, doing this, you get a slap on the wrist, and the other jurisdiction says, hey, we're taking away your license for an entire year, that's 100% Washington bureaucratic bullshit, and that's what the Appraisal Foundation should be out there focusing in on, not another set of standards.
Right.
You focus in on what these states are doing. Now, I know you don't regulate, but you have a heck of a lot of influence in the regulation side. And yes, you do lose a lot of credibility. Continue forward, Kevin.
To that end, we have we work with ARROW, the Association of Appraisers.
They're working with ARROW. That's fine.
And we work with the states to try to make sure that when they have questions about compliance with USPAP and stuff, that we're able to answer them.
You answer that question, you're regulated.
We also
do you agree?
For the last several editions of USPAP,
you answer the question, you're regulated. You're helping regulate.
Sanction matrix.
I'm not trying to be a jerk here.
With every edition of USPAP,
I'm not trying to be a jerk. I'm just saying.
Updating it right now for the one that becomes effective on January 1st. Kind of gives examples of sanctions of disciplinary sanctions as a result.
They're giving examples of sanctions
of USPAP violations. So.
That's called setting precedent if you were in a court of law. That's called setting precedent.
Once again, they're regulating.
Well, they're helping regulate.
That's available on our website. The state appraiser regulatory officials.
I'm not trying to be a jerk. I'm just saying.
Some don't. It is 100% voluntary, but the goal there is
make it mandatory.
Consistent as much as possible enforcement, or at least understanding of what the issues are to determine the enforcement. That is an issue that does come up from time to time.
To time.
I don't know, Wayne, if there's anything you want to add.
Yeah, two other things, and Jim Park.
Very, 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 very telling.
Right.
I mean, that's extremely telling. I mean, they go into talking about what Jim Park does over at the ASC, about how he monitors the states and everything else. But extremely telling. They do. I mean, the entire regulatory system that's set up now loses all credibility when that does happen. Now, listen, I'm not picking on John Brennan. I mean, he's exactly right. He's telling the truth. He's exactly right. The issue is you're helping regulators by giving them precedent, almost giving them court precedent by showing, hey, this is what has happened in the past in this state or this state.
Right.
There needs to be regulatory reform. It's as simple and easy as that. This is a mess. Now, what ends up happening is they get on a conversation about Jim Park and the way it's all set up and everything like that. But listen to what, and this is, I'm not going to mention his name, but a member of the Appraisal Standards Board, not the Appraiser Standards Board, the Appraisal Standards Board, who we wanted to have Pat Turner on. Listen to what this gentleman has to say.
The other piece, John, that goes along with this, and in addition to
this
the
is important.
disciplinary
Listen to this. This is important.
Matrix, there's also a joint effort between Arrow and the Appraisal Foundation, and I believe the Appraisal Subcommittee as well, that we have investigator training courses.
See, they have investigator training courses.
Investigators from the various states can come and learn about.
So if you're doing standards and quals,
discipline, how to read an appraisal, how to examine a work file.
I mean, you're giving lessons on how to regulate, right?
I believe 3 different course levels.
Are you helping regulate when you do that, Kevin?
In order to learn about that, so that
because here's the big problem.
Hopefully, there's not a lot of
disparity
between states where
here's the money.
In one case, you get a $50 fine and a slap on the wrist. Another place, you get beheaded.
Boom! Play that again. What he just said. Play that again.
One case, you get a $50 fine and a slap on the wrist. Another place, you get beheaded.
Play it again.
One case, you get a $50 fine and a slap on the wrist. Another place, you get beheaded.
One more time, Kevin.
One case, you get a $50 fine and a slap on the wrist. Another place, you get beheaded.
What would Homer Simpson say about that? No! That was pretty amazing. I'm going to be honest with you. There was a lot of honesty there. And look, I'm... Guys, the evaluation space, don't... Look. I'm going to Washington, D.C. I'll see you guys in a couple weeks, all right? We're going to be at Washington, D.C. The Network of Appraisal Coalitions has invited me to come up and speak about nationwide marketing and messaging for the real estate appraisal profession. I'm very honored to join them and to speak with them. I'm bringing Jonathan Miller with me as well to join in the presentation. I'm going to be up there. And I mean, no disrespect by this, but this just stay out of the damn evaluation space. Okay, stay out of it because the evaluation space, it's got a lot of problems too. I'll discuss those issues later on, but you got to focus in on 55 jurisdictions going in 55 different directions. And if you're a company, see, this is where USPAP's in the way of making money, and this is where the entire regulatory system's in the way of making money. If you're a company that wants to operate over different state lines, it's one thing to say, in this state, you're not allowed to do an evaluation, you have to call it an appraisal. Or in this state, you're not allowed to do a drive-by appraisal, you can only do full appraisal. Or in this state, see, that's a difference of the product, okay? But the application of the standards, which disciplines you, must be uniform. It has to be uniform. So it's not about is the product allowed to be done, but is the applications not being applied equally, and therefore that hurts business all the way across the line, especially, and we talked about this, when it comes to the E&O insurance premiums that are going up. So if I'm doing business in one state and I'm very comfortable with the way that USPAP has applied at the state board level, then I go to another state, has a totally different set of ways that they interpret USPAP, then boom, I get in trouble in that state, my company does, and my E&O insurance policy goes through the roof.
One case, you get a $50 fine and a slap on the wrist. Another place, you get beheaded.
That right there is the biggest problem that the entire system has,
exactly.
And it's got to come to an end. So, Foundation, if you want to know where you should go in the next 5 years, it's right there. Solve that problem right there. Solve it quickly, because there's being abuses throughout this country. This is something I'm going to go over in Washington next, in 2 weeks or something anyways. I firmly believe that if you have an appraisal report that is used in court for litigation, that appraisal report has had its day in court. You know what? It's had its day in court. It's had its jurisdictional exception. It should not be turned over to some board because some other appraiser who lost the case is mad at the appraiser who won the case and took that appraisal and sent it over to the state board. I think if it's used in court and the judge used it or the jury used it and they said, okay, this is what we've concluded our judgment on, it's had its day in court and it should not be in front of the board. It's as simple and easy as that. I firmly believe that. Because what's going to end up happening is you're going to have abuses out there where you have one appraiser who's very good in court and another one, a competitor, who keeps getting beat because this appraiser keeps beating him, may turn him into the state board out of vengeance and spite. See, that's the big problem with this. You got to get a hold of those state boards because we can't move forward. And don't think I'm being radical about this. That's what Juicy Jones says about me. You know, he's a cult leader. He's radical. She only says that stuff at 5 a.m. in the morning.
Right.
That happens sometimes. But I'm not being radical because I am a 45-year-old certified general appraiser. And if you don't solve this problem for me, an appraiser's 10 years older than me, an appraiser's 20 years younger than me, then you have no one to write standards for, because no one is going to be in the business, because you better damn well fix it. Now, I know that's harsh. We'll hug it out in Washington when I see you. I'm going to hug it out with you. Don't worry about it. But I'm telling you, from that webinar, that was absolutely unbelievable. USPAP is in the way.
Right.
Regulation is in the way of an appraiser out there doing their business. That's the big problem. And it was just admitted right there. Go ahead.
That's one of the things I think needs to get out to the general public, because me being part of the general public, not being an appraiser, I did not know that. Basically, what you're saying is you have this one poor little appraiser out there from Cincinnati, Ohio, Des Moines, Iowa, wherever.
Right.
Basically being pulled in 55 different directions.
Depending on where they practice. If the states don't have enough money to bring on good regulators and to bring on good investigators, then just shut it down.
Exactly.
There's got to be another way to fund them, is what it is. There has to be a different funding mechanism to do it. And I know a lot of people out there have talked about nationwide licensing and national licensing and things like this.
Nationally, I don't think that would work. It's a great idea.
It could be just as corrupt, though.
Exactly.
It could be just as corrupt as something on a local level. This is why you have to work heavily with your state coalitions, why you have to be involved with your state coalitions, because a lot of the good coalitions out there work directly with their regulators, saying, listen, if we do this, how are you applying this? Or how are you doing this way? I still don't like the competitors on the boards, though. I think there's going to be a big problem with that as well.
No, that shouldn't be.
No, that's going to run into some issues. So these are the issues, because right now what it appears to be is that Fannie and Freddie are going to get quieted. Fannie and Freddie are going to get quieted. The pilot programs are now going to calm down. So we can now concentrate on other things. And the one thing that we need to concentrate on is regulatory reform throughout the states. There's a lot of abuse going on with it, and it is. It's not fair for one appraiser to get a slap on the wrist for one thing and another appraiser to get beheaded on one. That's just not the way it needs to be. So, wow. Kevin, what a week, man. I mean, it was just absolutely out of control. Now, a lot of people are going to ask me, because you're saying that USPAP's in the way, are you going more to the evaluation side? Are you going more to that side? And the answer is no. This is not my road to Damascus moment where the Appraisal Institute and Bill Garber and Scott Diabazio descend from the clouds, from the nursing home in the sky, to come down and say, now do you back up evaluations? And I'm like, no, I'm not backing up evaluations either, because there's something going on in the evaluation space that you need to know about too. See, in some states, appraisers can't do the evaluations because they have to adhere to USPAP, right? So you remember the show we did about Jim Amron in the swimming pool, right?
Right.
So when you open up that door to those two swimming pools, the one swimming pool has the appraisers in it with the clean water, and then you got the evaluation side, which has got the guys that sit in there and drink beer all day long, never get out, right? Sometimes they hop into your pool as an appraiser. So Jim Amron's got some people in his pool right now who are drinking a lot of beer and not getting out all day long, and the water's kind of turning nasty, right? Well, come to find out, that evaluation space has got a lot of rubbers in it too. Okay, there's a lot of rubbers. There's a lot of rubbers in Jim Amron's swimming pool, and they come in the form of rubber stampers, okay? There's a lot of rubber stampers over there in the evaluation space. So if an appraiser wants to do an evaluation, well, they're walking into a world that could be a little bit dirty too. So there's all these different sides to it. There's all these different sides. The Appraisal Institute would probably be the only organization in the world that would also build a nursing home in heaven. I just picked up on that. They're coming from the nursing home in heaven. Aren't you supposed to leave the nursing home to go to heaven? I mean, who would build a nursing home in heaven, you know? But I'm just saying. Maybe they would come up with that idea.
That's what I was going to say. Wouldn't that be something, seeing the chariot come down and them in the chariot?
Come back to our nursing home. Oh, man. Now, listen, yes, I will be in D.C. in a couple weeks. And I have a feeling it's going to be a very good time meeting with everybody up there. I am going to be speaking, like I said, at the Networks meeting at the National Association of Realtors building in Washington, D.C. We do have other meetings set up. My agenda and my schedule is clandestine, Kevin. Clandestine. I'm not telling anybody where we're going until we go there because I don't want all those little mouths and all those little gossipers in Washington, D.C. to go, oh, Phil Crawford, he's an idiot. That guy's a radical. He's a cult leader. Don't listen to him. Now, we don't want to have that. We want to make sure that people have an open mind when they meet myself and Jonathan Miller and Lori Noble because we're going up there as part of the FindMyAppraiser.com nationwide marketing movement, which is getting bigger and bigger every single day. The next show that we do before we leave, we're going to have Janelle on. Janelle Vistel, she's going to come on. She's joining the team with FindMyAppraiser.com. It's going to be a lot of fun. Now is the time. Now is the time to strike when the iron is hot. Things are happening, Kevin. The GSEs appear to be quieting down. Pissing in the wind seems to be going away. The sausages seem to be shrinking up. And guess what? Now we got to concentrate on regulatory reform going forward. What a week, Kevin. Oh, man, I tell you. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of our show for this week. And as always, I would like to thank you for listening. As we journey through the mysteries and complexities that are, in fact, the real estate appraisal profession, I'd like to thank my producer, Kevin Kinney, for being here for his thoughtful insight and knowledge. God willing, we're going to be back here very soon reporting from the front lines of the real estate market. In the meantime, you kiss your spouse, you hug your children, enjoy your day, be safe in the field. You've been listening to Phil Crawford on Voice of Appraisal. We'll talk very soon.
One case, you get a $50 fine and a slap on the wrist. Another place, you get beheaded.
Go!